So finally I have an H. Moser to show you guys. It's the Pioneer Center Seconds. The moment I laid eyes on this watch, I fell in love with it. They're an independent brand that I've always wanted to own, and I will own one day. I really love their dials. I love the style of their watches, and I really like sort of the outlook that the company has. They don't take watches very, very seriously. It's sort of lighthearted, but they make very high quality watches, and I really love that. Anyway, let's flip the camera and take a look at the Mega Cool, and that's the color that they call this watch, from H. Moser Cie. So here it is, the Pioneer Center Seconds in the Mega Cool color. It's a limited edition from H. Moser Cie. I absolutely love the Pioneer Center Seconds. One of my favorite watches, and something that I have been wanting to get my hands on and try out for a very long time. I have to thank ExquisiteTimepieces.com for lending me this watch. They don't support the channel in any other way except for lending me watches, and I very much appreciate that. They allow me to review any watch that I want, and of course, here's a watch that I chose from them. They are an AD for multiple brands, including H. Moser, but brands like Seiko and Hamilton, so definitely check them out on ExquisiteTimepieces.com. They also have a brick and mortar store down in Naples, Florida. If you're in the area, definitely stop by and tell them Watch Chris sent you. Anyway, here it is, the Center Seconds, a watch that I've been talking about on my channel for many years. They've always been on my radar, a watch that I've always wanted. I have a list of watches. This is at the top of that list. Now, there's been a few reasons why I haven't bought one. There's a few sort of trepidations that I have about the watch. We'll get back to that in just a few seconds. Here it is. This is a 43mm watch. Now, that's one of the first sort of issues that I have with the watch. Not that there are very many, but that is one of them. This is the Mega Cool edition, so you get this aqua blue color. It's sort of black to aqua blue in the center, and of course you have sort of a matching strap on here. Now, H. Moser have been around for a very long time. They were defunct for a very long time as well. Someone bought the name and revived it, so technically this is an H. Moser, but it's just a revived brand. Lots of brands like that out there. Nothing wrong with that. However, there's no real connection to that original brand. They just use the name. And these watches are a lot more higher end than their original brand anyway. So I think they've revived it and done it even better. Now, they've come up with their own design language right from the bat. And this is it. I mean, it's a fume dial. That's what they do with almost all of their watches. They brought back the fume dial, in my opinion, and they do it the best. They make some of the best dials in the business. It's fume black to green. You have a chapter ring that is in black. You have applied indices, but what they do with their logo is etch it into the dial. Now, they didn't always do that, but they started doing that on these watches because obviously it's the dial that matters here. It's not the logo, and that's kind of the message that they're sending. Now, they do a lot of weird things. Now, they've made weird watches in the past. They made a watch that was sort of a joke. It was a Royal Oak bezel. It had like a president's bracelet from Rolex or something like that. And then it had a Nautilus factor to it somehow. They do weird things, and they did like a one-off watch of that. I don't think it was actually ever sold, but it was just to get attention. They also made a watch that grew sort of grass out of the and vines out of the strap and the case. And then they made another watch that was made out of Vanta black, or was painted black, and they put it against the black background. All you could really see were the hands. They do gimmicky things to get attention, to get press. However, I really don't think they need to do that because their watches deserve attention. You turn this watch on its side and you have a beautiful case. It looks like a traditional watch from the top down. However, on the side, you can see that it has a beautiful modern case. There are these cutouts on the side of the case that have a texturing. The texturing is beautiful. It's just vertical striping, basically. And then it is polished. You have a really nice knurled crown here. It is very, very grippy. It sort of tapers towards the watch, which looks really good and feels really good. The operation is really nice on this watch. You have a screwed-in case back, a screwed-in crown. You get 120 meters of water resistance, so very similar to my Vacheron. It's a sports watch. It's not meant to be a dive watch. You don't have a rotating bezel on here, although they did make a version with a rotating bezel and a bracelet. That's the version that I really want. But this is a really cool version as well. You could see the HMC 200 from the back. It's a really good looking movement, and I actually want to measure it so you can see what I'm talking about. It's huge. It's a very large movement. Obviously, it's a big watch, so 43 millimeters. It's probably a little bit bigger than that. I think I've already measured it. So over 31 millimeters of viewable space back here. So the movement's probably a little bit bigger than that, but that's basically the size of a vintage watch that you get to see a movement back here. You have a skeletonized rotor, 72 hours of power reserve. It's a little bit darkened from the rest of the actual movement. You have Geneva striping. Really a gorgeous movement, all in-house to H. Moser. Stainless steel case, and you get that same treatment on the other side of the case. It's sort of, I don't know, I want to say Art Deco, but it's almost like modern at the same time. So it's like Art Deco, modern, I don't know what you would call it, but I really do like the design of the case. You also get a very domed sapphire crystal. It does add to the thickness, but of course it's for style purposes. It looks pretty awesome, and on your wrist it looks phenomenal. And you can see there must be a lot of AR coating on this, because it does sort of, I don't know, melt away when I put it in the studio lights. You can't see it at all. Not a lot of reflection. You get a really good view of that dial, and it would be a shame if there wasn't a lot of AR coating, because you wouldn't be able to see that dial as clear, and that's where it's at for this watch. The applied indices are sort of polished and faceted, and then you have that chapter ring with just the dots for the lume. The hands are polished as well, and you have bars of lume on those. And then you have a running seconds hand. That is not lumed, I don't believe. I wish it was, but that's probably the other sort of knock on this watch that I would give, but it's really not a knock. I wouldn't say that's a knock at all. This is a sports watch. It's kind of a dress watch. It's kind of a, you know, interesting piece. So they didn't put lume on the second hand. Not a big deal. Let's do measurements on the watch really quickly, and we'll talk about price, and then we'll do a lume shot as well. So it's 43.5 millimeters. So it is big. It's almost 44 millimeters, and it does wear like a 44 millimeter watch because you have that thin polished bezel. 50.6, 50.7 millimeter lug to lug. The thickness is around 14 and change, 14 and a half. That's because you have that very domed sapphire crystal. It doesn't wear that thick on wrist, but it is a 14.5 millimeter thick watch, which is pretty thick considering it only gets 120 meters of water resistance, and then 6.5 millimeters at the crown. So not the biggest crown, but a very nice crown. The price on this, I think this specific watch is around $15,000. They make cheaper versions, which are non-limited editions, and I think those go for around 13 and change. So it's a very expensive watch, but you're getting a lot for that money, considering if you like independent brands, if you like the look of this watch. Now, I know a lot of people don't like the look of this watch. Some people do. I personally do. This is sort of a gateway drug into real independent watchmaking. That's the way I look at this. It has its own design DNA. It has an in-house movement. It's really a bespoke watch that is readily available. So you can actually go into, you know, ADs and buy this, whereas other independent brands like Your Work or MB&F, they're very, very hard to find. These are a little bit easier to find, although becoming less and less easy to find, and are starting to sell over list price, which is pretty crazy, and it's happening with a lot of brands, but hopefully that starts to reverse a little bit. You also get a very nice strap on here, which is made out of a sort of nylon. It's a little bit bolstered, but not too much that it's annoying and hard. It's not. And then you have a rubber lined back, and then you have a really nice buckle on here, which they use on all of their watches. Again, you get that same pattern that you get on the side of the case, you get it on the side of the buckle, and you have polishing, brushing, and it's signed H. Moser Cie. Beautiful, beautiful buckle. Obviously, at this price point, you should be getting a really beautiful buckle. And you get gray keepers on here, which is really nice. All in all, a beautiful, beautiful watch, well executed, and I really like the design. Now, the thing that I've said that I had a couple of trepidations about is the size. And that's really the only thing that I have a trepidation. I shouldn't say there's a couple. That is really the only thing that has sort of, you know, made me weary about buying one. I've always wanted one, and I keep on trying. I keep on sort of flip-flopping on getting one. So I'm going to throw it on my wrist. And I have to, again, thank ExquisiteTimepieces.com for allowing me to experience the watch, which has been very helpful in my sort of decision-making for possibly purchasing one of these in the future. But very quickly, let me show you what I have on my wrist, and then we will do a quick wrist shot and then a lume shot. I have my Ming on today, and obviously this is another independent brand. This gets an ETA movement, but it is a lot cheaper than this watch. So you do get a lot of what you get from a brand like H. Moser in Ming. That's why I think Ming are a pretty awesome brand DNA. So it's very recognizable as a Ming. You know this is a Ming immediately. The only thing is that it's not an in-house movement. So a lot of people go crazy about that. I don't think that's that big of a deal. And I still consider Ming an independent brand. They're not like a high-end independent brand, but they're definitely an independent brand. There are definitely different levels to independent brands out there. Like I said, H. Moser, and then you have, of course, MB&F. MB&F make some pretty wild watches. They also use stock calibers, by the way. So not all of their watches are in-house. There you go. It does look big on my wrist. I have a 7.5-inch wrist. This is a 43.5 millimeter watch. You have a very thin polished bezel on here, so it does look bigger than it actually is on my wrist. The only other issue I see with this watch is underneath the lugs, it does feel a little bit sharp. For the price point, again, I would expect no sharpness on a watch like this. There's a little bit of sharpness underneath the lugs. So everything else is finished very nicely, but it's just that. There you go. The dial is phenomenal. I think that's sort of their design DNA right there. You know, when you see an H. Moser, you know immediately it's an H. Moser because of the case design and the dial. Beautiful. Anyway, very quickly, let's do a lume shot and then wrap up the video. Like I said, the hands are, I think, blocks of lume, so it might be like Lumicast or something like that. It is pretty liberally applied on those hands. It's the chapter ring that is also loomed. It's just dots, not a lot of lume, but I guess it would sort of mess up the look of this watch. So they kind of went with a very conservative lume rather than do something that's a little wild. Either way, I think this is a great watch. It's just really good looking. It is on the larger side, and having experienced it now, I'm still on the fence. I'm not 100% sure if this is a watch that fits my wrist well. I have a 7.5-inch wrist, like I said. This is on the upper scale of where I wear watches now. 44 millimeters is probably where I draw the line now. I will wear a watch that's bigger if I have it already in my collection, but I'm trying not to buy watches that large, over 44 millimeters or around that range. So that's kind of where I'm at. I don't want an uncomfortable watch on my wrist, and I'm afraid that this would be uncomfortable and I won't end up wearing it. That's really my biggest fear. But I do love the design. I love the dial. I love the case. I think the strap is beautiful. Everything about the watch I find attractive. So there you go. Anyway, tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think of H. Moser in general? What they've done, you know, sort of their brand, where they came from, what they are now, and what their, you know, brand is doing. The gimmicks that they pull from time to time, kind of gimmicky, obviously, as I mentioned. I don't think that sort of is, I don't know. It's not something that I think their brand should be known for, in my opinion. I get it. It's tongue-in-cheek. It's fun. And I do like some of the watches that they actually come out with. I think they're funny, and some of them are actually cool, in my opinion. And maybe I wish, you know, you were able to buy one, but this is something that I don't think they need to do because their watches deserve attention, as I mentioned, because they are awesome. not because of any other reason. So tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. Please also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. It is super helpful for the channel, and I very much appreciate it. Please follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is WatchChrisBlog, all one word. I have some links in the description. Those links are to Amazon. If you click those links and buy anything, it helps support the channel. It doesn't cost you anything extra. However, I very much appreciate it. Anyway, thank you for logging on. I'll catch you guys in the next video.